Love is supposed to heal, but for many of us, it hurts more than anything else ever could. We find ourselves drawn to people who make us anxious, who ignore us, who confuse us, and yet somehow we can't walk away. The moments of affection feel electric. The silence that follows feels unbearable. And between those two extremes, something strange happens. We begin to confuse pain with passion. We call it love, but deep down, we know it feels more like survival. So, why do we love the people who hurt us? Why do we chase after the same patterns, replay the same heartbreak, and mistake chaos for connection? The answer lies not in the present, but in the past, deep in the emotional blueprint our minds built long before we even knew what love meant. When you were a child, love wasn't just a feeling, it was safety, survival, belonging. And if love came inconsistently, if it was mixed with fear, rejection, or neglect, your brain learned something dangerous, that love and pain are supposed to coexist. It learned that affection doesn't come freely, it must be earned. That connection is fragile and peace is temporary. So now, as an adult, when you meet someone who gives you uncertainty, distance, or emotional chaos, it feels familiar. And the mind confuses familiar with safe. You don't fall in love with their cruelty, you fall in love with the pattern it fits into. The story your nervous system already knows by heart. It's not that you want pain, it's that your mind is addicted to the relief that comes after it. This is what psychologists call trauma bonding, the cycle of hurt and reward that glues you to someone even when logic begs you to leave. It's the same mechanism that keeps gamblers pulling the lever or addicts chasing the next hit. Uncertainty keeps the brain hooked. When someone treats you kindly, then kindly again, your brain releases more dopamine than it would from constant affection. It's the unpredictability that turns love into obsession. Every time they withdraw and then return, your mind says, maybe this time I'll finally be enough. That small hope becomes the drug, and that's the cruel irony. The same love that hurts you also becomes your escape from the hurt. The same person who breaks you is the only one who can make the pain stop. So you stay, you justify, you tell yourself they just need time. You mistake the emotional roller coaster for depth. But real love doesn't swing between heaven and hell. It's not supposed to feel like walking on glass, waiting for the next apology, the next high. That's not passion, that's emotional withdrawal. If you've ever wondered why calm, consistent people bore you, that's why. Your nervous system was never taught what calm feels like. It confuses peace with emptiness, because compared to chaos, peace feels strange, too quiet, too easy. So you chase the storm instead, because at least storms make you feel alive. And in a world where you've learned that love equals pain, aliveness feels close enough to affection. But deep down, there's always that small voice that knows this isn't love. It's reenactment. You're not falling for the person in front of you. You're falling for the person your inner child still hopes will finally stay. We don't just date partners, we date our patterns. And until we see those patterns clearly, they'll keep replaying like an unfinished song. Every relationship that ends in the same kind of heartbreak is not a coincidence. It's a mirror. A mirror reflecting the parts of yourself still waiting to be healed. The truth is, the people who hurt us the most often touch the oldest parts of our pain. They awaken something ancient, the fear of not being enough, the desperation to prove our worth, the ache of being unseen. We're drawn to them not because they're special, but because they recreate what's unresolved. And so, without realizing it, we fall in love with our own wound. We say things like, I can't explain why I love them, I just do. But love built on trauma isn't love, it's repetition. It's the mind's way of saying, maybe if I get it right this time, I'll finally be free. Freedom doesn't come from fixing someone else. It comes from realizing that their behavior was never your responsibility. You can't love someone into being whole when you're using that love to patch the holes in yourself. The painful truth is that not every love story is meant to be completed. Some are meant to wake you up, to show you what still hurts, to teach you where your boundaries need to be. They aren't punishments, they're mirrors, reflecting back the lessons your soul has been trying to learn. The lesson isn't don't love, it's love consciously. See clearly what part of you is choosing the person in front of you. Is it your adult self, grounded, calm, aware, or is it the scared child still trying to earn safety from the same emotional patterns that once denied it? When you love from fear, you cling. When you love from need, you lose yourself. But when you love from awareness, you stay whole, even when others can't love you back the way you hoped. And that's where healing begins, not by finding someone new, but by meeting yourself where you were last abandoned. The part of you that still thinks love must be earned, proven, or chased. That's the one who needs love first. There's a certain kind of heartbreak that doesn't disappear when the person does. It just changes its shape. At first, it lives in your chest, then it hides in your habits, in the way you check your phone, in the way you keep rehearsing what you should have said. You think time will bury it, but time only teaches it how to blend in. It becomes part of the background noise of who you are. You try to move on. You tell yourself that this time you'll choose differently, that you'll see the red flags early, but then someone smiles a certain way or says something that reminds you of them, and suddenly you're back inside the same movie, playing the same role, hoping for a different ending. That's the quiet cruelty of emotional memory. It doesn't just store what happened, it stores how it felt. And feelings are powerful storytellers. They whisper, "This is what love feels like," even when what they're describing is fear, tension, or uncertainty. When you fall for someone who reminds you of an old wound, your body reacts before your mind can object. Your heartbeat quickens, not because it's right, but because it's familiar. Familiarity feels safe, even when it's poison. That's how cycles are born. People often ask, why don't we leave when we know we're being hurt? Because knowledge doesn't heal attachment, consistency does. And when consistency is replaced by chaos, chaos becomes what you're attached to. You wait for apologies that never come, for changes that never last. And between every disappointment, there's just enough warmth to keep hope alive. That's the most dangerous kind of hope, the kind that convinces you to stay one more day, one more try, one more chance. It's easy for outsiders to say, just walk away. But walking away isn't the hard part. Staying away is. Leaving breaks the pattern, but the pattern fights back. It pulls at you with memories, with the illusion of closure, with the idea that maybe you're giving up too soon, and you start negotiating with yourself. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I expected too much. Maybe love is supposed to be hard. You rewrite the story so it hurts less to stay than it does to leave, because leaving feels like failure, and failure feels like being unloved. But here's the truth: sometimes love hurts not because it's deep, but because it's unhealed. Pain doesn't always mean passion. Sometimes it's just a signal that your boundaries have been crossed again. The body knows it, the mind rationalizes it, the heart makes excuses. You tell yourself that all relationships have problems. You remind yourself of their good moments. You cling to potential because potential is easier to love than reality. It's hope that keeps the bond alive, not harmony. Every time they come back after pulling away, the relief feels holy. That rush, that warmth, that flood of chemicals, it feels like proof. Proof that they care, proof that you matter. But it isn't proof, it's withdrawal ending. Your brain's been starving for connection and now it's being fed again. That's not love, that's chemistry. And chemistry can be deceiving because when you've known love as instability, peace feels like boredom. When you've known affection as inconsistency, real intimacy feels foreign. And when you've learned that love must be earned, you never truly rest inside it. So you start chasing validation instead of connection. You measure your worth by how hard someone is to please. If they're distant, you try harder. If they pull away, you chase. You mistake their absence for your failure. That's what emotional addiction looks like: the constant need to fix, to prove, to be enough. And underneath it all, there's that old fear whispering, if I stop trying, they'll stop loving. So you keep trying until there's nothing left of you to offer. People rarely notice when they cross the line between love and self betrayal. It happens slowly in small compromises. You silence your needs so they won't leave. You accept apologies that never come with change. You tell yourself that patience is virtue when really it's fear wearing a halo. And every time you forgive without repair, you teach them and yourself that love means endurance, not respect. You start confusing loyalty with self abandonment. The irony is that many of us love this way because, at our core, we're not chasing the person in front of us. We're chasing the feeling of finally being chosen, of being enough for someone who mirrors the people who once couldn't see us. That's the unspoken hope behind every toxic attachment, that this time the story will end differently. But stories only end differently when they're told by someone new, and that someone has to be you. Breaking the cycle doesn't start with anger or blame, it starts with grief. The grief of realizing that love alone doesn't fix people, and effort doesn't make the wrong person right. It's mourning the version of yourself that kept believing pain was proof of meaning. Healing isn't glamorous. It's not the moment you block someone or move out or delete the pictures. It's the quiet morning after, when your body still reaches for your phone and you tell it, no, not this time. It's when you sit with the ache instead of feeding it, when you stop turning longing into purpose. And the first thing you notice in that silence is fear. Fear that without the chaos, life will feel empty. But emptiness isn't the absence of love, it's the space where real love can finally exist. When the noise fades, what's left is you, unfiltered, unperformed, unchased. That's what most of us are truly afraid of, meeting ourselves without the distraction of being needed. Because when the person who hurt you leaves, the silence they leave behind introduces you to someone new, the version of you that doesn't need saving. And that version of you feels strange at first because they don't chase, they don't beg, they don't plead, they observe, they breathe, they feel, they understand that love that costs your peace is too expensive to afford again. The more you sit with that silence, the more it starts to change shape. What once felt like loss begins to feel like space. And in that space, small things start to matter again. Sunlight through curtains, a long walk without checking your phone, the sound of your own voice when it's not trying to convince anyone. That's recovery. Not the dramatic breakthrough, but the return to ordinary moments that don't need fixing. That's when you begin to realize that peace isn't boring, it's just unfamiliar. And once you learn the texture of peace, you'll never crave the chaos the same way again. The person who hurt you doesn't disappear from your memory. They become a teacher whose lessons you no longer need to repeat. You stop romanticizing the pain because you've lived through enough of it to know it doesn't lead anywhere new. And eventually, one day, without fanfare, without ceremony, you wake up and notice that their name doesn't sting anymore. It's not that you've forgotten them, it's that you've remembered yourself. There's a strange emptiness that follows the end of a toxic love. It's not just sadness, it's disorientation. For so long, your emotions had a direction. You were fighting for something, hoping for something, surviving something. And when that finally stops, you don't feel peace right away. You feel lost, like a soldier who's forgotten what to do when the war ends. That's the part people rarely talk about. Healing doesn't feel like victory, it feels like confusion. You expect relief, but what you get is silence, and that silence can be terrifying. Because if your whole identity was built around trying to fix, prove, or earn love, then who are you once you stop? That's where real healing begins. Not when you stop missing them, but when you start meeting yourself. For years, you probably measured your worth by how someone else treated you. If they were kind, you felt valuable. If they were cold, you felt small. Your emotions lived at the mercy of their attention. And breaking that bond isn't just about leaving, it's about reclaiming ownership of your own reflection. You begin to realize that your worth was never up for negotiation. It was never something to be earned. It was only something you forgot to see. Most people think healing from heartbreak is about forgetting the person, but it's not. It's about remembering who you were before their voice became the loudest one in your head. Because here's the truth, when you've been hurt by love, you don't stop loving. You just stop trusting your ability to choose. You start doubting your intuition, your judgment, your heart. You think, how did I let this happen again? But the answer isn't weakness, it's wiring. You were wired to chase what felt familiar, not what felt safe. Now you're learning to rewire. And rewiring takes time. It's slow, repetitive, unglamorous work. It means catching yourself mid thought and asking, is this love Or is this fear dressed as love? It means saying no to the quick fix of validation so you can say yes to the long term peace of authenticity. Healing is a series of small, quiet decisions. It's unfollowing someone not out of anger, but out of kindness to your nervous system. It's writing a message you'll never send, just to release what's trapped inside. It's sitting alone on a Friday night and realizing you're not lonely. You're just detoxing from the noise. And in that detox, something subtle begins to shift. You start to feel tiny moments of relief, a laugh that doesn't carry guilt, a morning where you don't reach for your phone, a night where your dreams don't involve the same person. Those moments are easy to overlook, but they're the milestones of your recovery. That's your heart learning how to beat without needing someone else to set the rhythm. One of the hardest parts of healing is forgiveness, not forgiveness for them. That comes later or maybe never, but forgiveness for yourself, for staying too long, for ignoring red flags you saw clearly, for believing words instead of patterns, for confusing chemistry with destiny. We're cruel to ourselves in the aftermath of pain. We replay every mistake like a punishment reel. But healing means understanding that those choices weren't stupidity, they were survival. You loved with the information you had at the time. You were doing your best to heal through connection. That doesn't make you foolish, it makes you human. Forgiveness isn't a declaration, it's a process of self trust, returning one layer at a time. And once that trust comes back, you start to love differently, not cautiously, but consciously. You begin to see that healthy love isn't loud, it's steady. It's not built on adrenaline and anxiety, it's built on calm and clarity. It doesn't demand constant proof, it offers quiet consistency. And when you experience that for the first time after chaos, it feels almost wrong because your mind will tell you it's too calm, too plain, too still. But that stillness, that is what safety feels like. You'll know you're healing when peace starts to feel like home instead of a threat. When you no longer crave the apology that will never come. When you stop explaining your worth to people who refuse to see it. When you can remember the good moments without wanting to relive them. That's when the story starts to close. When you've spent enough time healing, something curious starts to happen. You stop romanticizing the idea of the one. You stop chasing intensity disguised as connection. You begin to crave something quieter, something that doesn't drain you to feel alive. And in that quiet, you discover something extraordinary, that peace can be as addictive as pain once was. You start noticing that you're no longer drawn to what hurts. The old patterns still whisper, but they no longer call you home. You look at the people who once consumed your thoughts and realize that what you mistook for chemistry was just anxiety in disguise. The pull is gone, replaced by clarity, and clarity feels good. Not euphoric, not dramatic, just real. Healing, it turns out, is not about becoming harder, it's about becoming softer without breaking. It's about letting go of the idea that love should rescue you and realizing it should remind you of what you already are. We spend so much of our lives searching for the right person that we forget to become the right energy. We think love will finally fix what's broken inside us. But real love doesn't repair you, it reveals you, it mirrors back all the places where you still need to meet yourself. At first, that realization feels heavy, almost disappointing, because the fairy tales promised us that love would complete us. But maybe love was never meant to complete us. Maybe it was meant to wake us up. The relationships that hurt us were not mistakes. They were messages. They showed us where we abandoned ourselves. They revealed what parts of us were still begging to be seen. Every heartbreak was a teacher whispering, "This is where you need to come home to yourself." And when you finally do, you stop needing people to fill your emptiness because it's no longer empty. It's space now. Space for connection, creativity, compassion, space for love that doesn't consume you but coexists with your peace. You realize that love isn't supposed to feel like hunger, it's supposed to feel like presence. It's not fire that burns, it's warmth that stays. For the first time, you begin to understand what healthy love looks like. Not because someone told you, but because you've lived the opposite. Healthy love doesn't demand that you shrink to fit. It doesn't keep you guessing where you stand. It's not built on performance or perfection. It's built on honesty. It doesn't silence your voice. It invites it. It's not about finding someone who never hurts you. It's about finding someone who takes responsibility when they do. Someone who doesn't fear your depth, who doesn't punish your sensitivity, who doesn't mistake your calm for indifference. Someone who isn't scared of the quiet. But here's the beautiful secret. When you become that kind of love within yourself, you stop chasing it outside. You attract it naturally, effortlessly, quietly, because like energy always finds like energy. The frequency you heal on becomes the frequency you live on. And from there, love is no longer a search, it's a state of being. There's something sacred about realizing that you can love someone deeply and still let them go, that not every connection needs to last to be meaningful. Some souls come to awaken us, not to stay. They arrive, they shake the foundation, they break open the walls, and then they leave. Not as punishment, but as completion. They finish their lesson in your story, and you in theirs. That's what growth looks like. Gratitude without attachment, forgiveness without re entry, peace without permission. At some point, you stop asking, why did they do this to me? And start asking, what did this teach me about myself? And that's when everything changes. Pain becomes wisdom, wounds become insight. You stop identifying with the hurt and start identifying with the awareness it gave you. And that's when you realize something profound. The people who hurt you were never the real story. The real story was how you rose after them, how you rebuilt your identity, your faith in love, your relationship with your own heart. That's what remains after the pain fades. Not bitterness, but understanding. Understanding that everyone in their own way is doing the best they can with what they know. That hurt people don't just hurt others. They recreate their own pain hoping to finally control it. That love isn't divided between the good and the bad. It's the entire spectrum, from longing to loss to liberation. And in that understanding, you find compassion. Not the kind that invites people back into your life, but the kind that frees you from resentment. You stop wishing for revenge or apology. You start wishing them healing because you understand now that pain only multiplies when passed on. When you stop passing it, you become the end of the line. That's what it means to truly evolve, to take everything that hurt you and let it grow something beautiful instead of bitter, to become the kind of love that once felt impossible. In the end, love isn't about who stays or who leaves. It's about who you become in the process. It's about learning to give without losing yourself, to care without carrying what isn't yours, to stay open without letting the world harden you. You start to realize that love isn't meant to fill the emptiness inside you. It's meant to remind you that the emptiness was never real. It was just the space where love was waiting to return. And maybe, when all is said and done, that's the point of this whole human experience. To learn how to love in all its forms, to love and lose, to love and let go, to love and still love again, not because we forget the pain, but because we finally understand what it was trying to teach us. Love is not a destination, it's a mirror, one that shows you who you are beneath every attachment, every fear, every story. And when you can look into that mirror and feel calm instead of craving, gratitude instead of guilt, peace instead of panic, you've arrived. Because the truth is, love was never out there. It was always you, reflected back in every connection, every heartbreak, every moment you chose to keep your heart open, even when it hurt. So when people ask, why do we love the ones who hurt us? The answer isn't weakness, it's courage. Because to love at all, even when it breaks you, is to be profoundly human, and to heal from that love, to rise from it with empathy instead of armor, is to be divine. You don't stop loving after heartbreak. You start loving differently. You stop chasing what's fleeting and start valuing what's real. You stop running from solitude and start meeting yourself in it. And somewhere along the way, without even realizing it, you become what you were searching for. You become home. If this story found you in a moment of reflection, if it made you pause, breathe, or feel a little less alone, then that's all it was meant to do. Thank you for listening. Until next time, take care of your heart, take care of your mind, and remember, the love you're looking for has been waiting inside you all along.